Hello and welcome. This is video number 7 in an 8-part series on the Industrial Revolution. And in today's video, I'm going to focus on capitalism. And as I tried to do with the socialism video before, I want to speak to capitalism in its pure form, of which there's no actual example. There's no system that operates with pure capitalism, but in terms of trying to draw distinctions between capitalism and socialism, I think this is one of the easiest ways to do that. So with that, here we go. All right, with capitalism. Capitalism as an economic system definitely began to emerge, really going back to maybe the 1500s or so and moving forward with the beginning of a commercial revolution that created an opportunity for individuals to start generating wealth, not just kings within their kingdoms. And as far as capitalism goes, as an economic perspective, again, with pure capitalism, the view is that when it comes to wealth production, any kind of rules or regulations that might be in place on businesses, for example, will hurt with the production of wealth. And that the best kind of economic system for the greatest amount of wealth production and the greatest amount of progress is one that gets to operate freely. Now, Adam Smith is a person who spoke very highly of the concept of capitalism, and some of the reasons why he believed that capitalism was the best kind of economic system that would provide the greatest number of benefits for the greatest number of people in a society were things like he talked about self-interest. Even though a lot of times we think about self-interest the same way we might think about being selfish, and usually we think of selfish as being a negative thing. Basically, what he said is if people operate with their own self-interest, that's going to do the most good for the greatest number of people. For example, take the COVID-19 pandemic that's going on right now. One of the things that is being worked on is a vaccine. Adam Smith would say that the best chance for a vaccine being produced in the shortest amount of time is to have the incentives that are present with capitalism, that companies that might be able to produce a vaccine that operating out of their own self-interest of trying to generate a vaccine first so that they can make lots of money is going to actually do the greatest number of people the most good. That out of that profit motive, they have a strong incentive. Companies would have a strong incentive to come up with a good, effective vaccine as quickly as possible. And that if there wasn't any of that kind of self-interest involved, that it might take a lot longer for something like that to be made. And that what he would say is beautiful about the way capitalism can work is it wouldn't even matter if the company that's working on the vaccine even cares about people. It doesn't even matter. If all they care about is money, the only way they can actually make their money is if they produce something that's going to do a lot of people a lot of good. And in fact, the greatest amount of money potential that they have is to make not only a vaccine that works, but one that works quickly, and then to be able to actually produce enough of the vaccine that everybody could be vaccinated around the world. And so out of their own self-interest, even if they don't care about people, the end result would be helping lots and lots of people. And that competition is what makes sure that the products that we want are not only available, but of good quality. For example, go with the vaccine example. There's not just one company that's working on producing a vaccine. There's lots of different groups that are working on a vaccine right now. And because there's competition to produce a vaccine, the people that are wanting to, be the first to have it, the ones that are wanting to get the profit off of coming up with a vaccine, know that the only way that's going to happen is if they have a good product. They can't just produce something and say, hey, we've got a vaccine, and have it not be any good and actually profit. There's a strong incentive to not only make the product, but to make it of good quality. And that also with the concept of supply and demand that Adam Smith talked about, he said that without any interference, without any rules and regulations, that the things that people want will be produced, and they'll be produced at prices people are willing and able to pay. Again, go back to the vaccine idea. Because there is a strong demand for a vaccine, there's a good reason for people to work at producing one. And when somebody does come up with one, they can't charge $1 million per dose because people can't afford that. People won't be able to pay for that. And they may end up charging more for a dose than people might like. I mean, some people would argue that for the good of the world, they should just give it away for free. But the reality is, when it comes to what they would charge for the vaccine, they can only charge what people are willing and able to pay. And so through supply and demand, vaccines will be made and people will be vaccinated. And through capitalism, that's going to happen in the fastest amount of time possible. And so that's the way Adam Smith would view things. And just like with socialism, with capitalism, I want to walk through the factors of production questions and how they're answered. Whereas with socialism, it's the government, in essence, that answers all of those questions. With capitalism, it works a little differently. With capitalism, on the what gets produced question, ultimately it's the people and the people who want to buy things and the producers that potentially will make things that determine what gets produced. Basically, what we as people want become the things that end up being produced. As far as how things are produced, basically, it's with pure capitalism, it would be the people that are making a product that determine how it gets produced. So whatever methods they might want to employ, whether those are safe or whether those are dangerous, whether those have harmful environmental effects, whatever the case might be, they're going to determine how they produce that. It is important to keep in mind that when they do consider how they produce things, they understand that consumers, in many cases, do care. If you notice today, a lot of the packaging will have information on it about production and packaging or producers that believe that people want environmentally responsible practices to be used usually put that on their packaging. So next time you're looking at the packaging of products, take a look at that and see what kind of information is on there that might tell you a little bit about how that product is produced, because it might be worth it to some to spend more money producing in a like an environmentally safe way than to do it less expensively in a way that's damaging to the environment, all things being equal. And then the who gets what produced with capitalism is determined by prices and supply and demand. Basically, your ability to pay for something determines whether or not you're going to be able to get it, and how much something is in demand, how much of a supply there is going to be a big factor in what things cost. When there's an abundant supply of things, even if demand is high, chances are the prices are going to be relatively low. If it's something that's in high demand and not readily available, chances are you're going to see higher prices on that. And again, as I'm talking through these factors of production questions, we're talking about pure capitalism, where there wouldn't be any rules or regulations whatsoever. In reality, even in countries like ours that are usually described as capitalist, there are lots of rules and regulations that producers are going to have to follow for all kinds of reasons, because of safety or whatever. So, even in America, we are nowhere near a pure capitalist system. All right, so last thing I want to talk about specifically with capitalism is just the concept of a free market economy. Whereas in a socialist planned economy, it's the central planners, maybe an individual or a group of individuals, that determine all aspects of the economy. In a free market economy, which is a phrase usually associated with capitalism, it's simply the individuals throughout the society end up determining what to make or what to consume freely. And so in a pure capitalist society, everybody participates in the economy. All of our individual decisions and all of our individual wants and needs play into all of the different things that are made available to us throughout society at all the different prices that might come at us. Now, as far as challenges to a free market system, a challenge that you might note or that people might identify is that the reality is there are some people that are going to end up with less things, less stuff, both in things they want as well as need, than other people. And that factors, maybe even beyond people's control, are going to contribute to that. So if you're looking for a system that is all about 100% fairness and equality and sameness and everybody gets the same thing, capitalism is just not going to do that. I mean, for example, I'm not going to be able to make millions and millions of dollars as a professional football player because I do not have the physical attributes that I would need if that was something that I wanted to do. I could want to do it all I want, but at my size, it's just not going to happen. And that's all there is to it. And so that's one of the things you're going to get in a purely capitalist society. Your efforts, your abilities will all ultimately factor into what you get, and that may not be the same as somebody else. Now, the last thing I want to touch on, and this is a way of blending, or not really blending the two together, but kind of coming back to both capitalism and socialism, and that is this concept or idea of cooperation. As much as people talk about how different the two systems are, uh, there is a lot of sameness. As I was saying a couple videos ago, ultimately, I think it's pretty accurate to say that the goals of each are about the same. They want the things that people want and need to be available to people. That with socialism and capitalism, it's just very different approaches at trying to reach that goal. And so, by that, both systems are cooperative. They're just cooperative differently. With socialism, it ends up being government policies that require cooperation take place to try to ensure that exchanges between people who want and need things and where those things are produced are able to happen in a certain way. So cooperation is mandated basically with socialism, whereas with capitalism, the cooperation is voluntary, that there is a voluntary exchange that takes place between people who want stuff and people who are making stuff. And so in both cases, cooperation takes place, but with socialism, it's mandatory, whereas with capitalism, it is voluntary. Now, socialism ultimately emerged because there was a view that there were some significant problems in society, and there was a view that they were going to stay that way permanently. And had that been the case, there probably would have needed to be some changes to how things happen. As it turns out, socialism maybe didn't take root as strongly as it might otherwise have, because there started to be some changes to how things operated, and some of the inequalities, some of the exploitations began to be less and less significant, if not go away completely in some cases. And so that's going to be the subject of the final video in this series, some of the reforms and changes that took place with industrialization to alleviate some of the real problems that were present in the beginning. Hopefully you found this helpful and informative. Thanks for watching.